Marcus. A tale of friendship, courage, deception and strife. Oh, and also old ladies. Chapter 2. Didn't the cabbage come from France? The next day Marcus's parents get back early in the morning, to find Marcus passed out on the front porch. Sounding sick with worry, Marcus's mother cries out, "Oh my God, Marcus, are you all right?" They both rush over to him. His father bends down and picks him up. Whoa, he seems really warm. His dad says, not being able to believe how warm he was. The sun was bright, but it had only just come up, and being winter was still very cold. They take him inside, take his damp clothes off, put him on the sofa, pop a big pillow under his head and cover him up with a homemade blanket his mother stitched when she was a child. Oh, I'm sorry I haven't told you their names yet. Marcus's mother's name was Beatrice and his father was John. Beatrice was my only daughter of 4 children. She checks Marcus's forehead and asks John, "Do you think he's getting colder?" John checks. Yeah, he definitely has. I'll get the fire going." Just finishing the fire, John's ears prick up. Hearing Beatrice put her coat back on, makes John feel a little giddy. He hopes she's going to the shop and has already started to think of treats he might be getting. "I'm popping to the shop to get some bacon," she says, quickly grabbing her keys and making a fast exit, before John can ask for lots of sweets. Making her way to the car, Beatrice keeps her ear out. Knowing John will be poking his head out of the window shouting out a shopping list, as he did, but a quiet shout as not to wake Marcus. "Smoked bacon please, and some energy drinks. That'll cheer Marcus up." John watches as Beatrice pops her hand out of the window to flick a little wave as she drives off. He shuts the window feeling satisfied with his list, but soon bursts it open again to give another quiet shout. "Oh, and pancakes please." Then again, but looking less enthusiastic as Beatrice drives off. "Don't forget pancakes." John, not being convinced Beatrice heard him, shuts the window once again, but this time just staring outside glumly, looking sorry for himself. As if the weather too feels sorry for John, starts to rain. A moment later John hears a little whisper. "Did I hear pancakes?" John, still staring at the rain, answers with little energy. "No, I don't think you did." Suddenly realizing that Marcus had awakened, John goes over to him and sits on the edge of the sofa by his legs. "Hey, how are you feeling?" Marcus, feeling unsure of what's going on, looks a little confused but tells his dad that he feels fine. John goes on in a caring way. "Is there anything you want, a drink or anything?" "Yeah, a big mug of hot chocolate please," John says in a silly voice. "A big mug, Well, I think we can sort that out for you." He goes into the kitchen right away, grabs his own mug, which is almost a whole liter, grabs the tub of mint-flavored hot chocolate, drops a big scoop of it, a bit of sugar and some creamy full-fat milk into the mug, switches the kettle on and heads back to the front room. Meanwhile, Marcus sits up and notices his bag at the end of the sofa. Feeling unsure of why it was out, grabs it and has a look inside. He sees his camera. His eyes widen with uncertainty. Taking his camera out and turning it on, he starts to flick through the album. Passing lots of pictures, of him building a secret base with his best friend, Jack's daughter Rose. Finally finding what he wasn't sure what he was looking for, the picture of the lamp and stool. His head starts to feel a little light and his uncertainty turns to worry. Now staring at his clothes that are hanging by the fire, Marcus starts wondering. Why can't I remember anything, since eating the strawberries and cream? Why is my dad acting like I'm really ill, and why are my clothes so wet? Did I go out last night and take the new pictures on my camera and fall asleep in the snow? All these thoughts twisted his stomach. "Hey, what you got there?" John says, walking back into the front room and squeezing up next to Marcus to get a good look at his pictures. "Just a picture of some stars and a lamp," Marcus says, sounding unsure why they were on his camera, and passes it to his dad. As John looks at the photos, A little glimmer of light flickers in his eyes and he looks to Marcus and sees him pulling himself back up onto the sofa, after taking the golden box he had found the night before out of his bag. "Wow, nice box, that's a keeper," John says, looking somewhat mesmerized. The thing about John that always got me was the fact that boxes always seemed to fascinate him. When Beatrice and John would visit with Marcus, I would have to hide all my jewelry boxes so John wouldn't be snooping in and out of them, finding all the little drawers and whatnot. He has boxes for boxes to keep them in good nick, but then had all his nuts and bolts all over the floor in his shed. As Marcus opens the box, a memory of the night before reappears in his mind. Not finding anything else, hands it to his dad. With John near enough, snatching it out of his hands and immediately starting to examine it, but looking more like he's working underneath a car. Marcus just stares a little while but finally asks, "So what fell from the sky?" With John taken aback, he stares at Marcus blankly, still holding the box above his head. Now Marcus was a little taken aback himself and was now wondering if the memory of his dad telling him that work had rang from the night before. The memory that popped back into his mind when he opened up the box was a dream. He even starts thinking that he might be in a dream right now. Something felt strange, or maybe he's just had one too many late nights. The kettle clicks and John goes into the kitchen to finish Marcus's hot chocolate. As he's stirring, he realizes what Marcus was asking about. After finding Marcus outside, John hadn't really thought of what had happened the night before. He hands Marcus the hot chocolate, sits back down by his legs again and goes on to tell him about what had happened. Well, the object that fell from the sky caused a lot of damage. It took the emergency services to get it as safe as they did. Before Jack insisted we were allowed near the impact to examine the area. The impact damage luckily wasn't that wide, no one got hurt, but there wasn't much left of what did get hit. As Marcus is sitting there hugging his mug with his eyes closed listening, takes a sip of his drink. "Wow, that's the best hot chocolate I've ever had," Marcus suddenly shouts out, interrupting his dad. "Really? Then let me try some," John says, snatching the mug from Marcus's hands. Gulping it down while Marcus tries to reach out and reclaim it, but without any luck, falls off the sofa, crashing onto the floor, landing on his shoulder and the back of his head. "Ha ha ha ra ha ha. Ha cough cough." With John laughing and wailing at him as he struggles to lift himself up, he starts to frown heavily at his dad upside down, piled up on top of himself. "I'm sorry, was a damn nice hot chocolate though. I'll go make another too." John, clearly less concerned about Marcus now, walks back into the kitchen. Staring at the fire, still upside down, Marcus's eyes gets drawn towards the corner of the ceiling. As if struck by lightning, he bolts into the air, making a whimper, falls behind the sofa and gets tangled up in his blanket. Crawling towards the kitchen and trying to free himself, starts crying out, "Help Dad, help." Meeting Marcus at the door, John starts laughing again. "What are you still doing on the floor? Ha ha ha. Look up there." Panicking and pointing from behind his dad's legs, Marcus cries. Backing up and tumbling over poor Marcus back into the kitchen, John starts to scream. "Shut the door, Marcus. Shut the door." Right away Marcus slams shut the door, whilst pushing himself away with his legs. With both of them just sitting there, out of breath and staring at the door, John breaks the silence. "Well, we'll wait in here till your mom gets back, eh?" Marcus agrees, breathing heavily. "Yeah, good idea." John hands Marcus his blanket. "Here, put it by the oven and turn her on. It's a little chilly in here, so that should keep us warm. I'll finish the drinks off." With the two of them warming up by the oven and waiting for Beatrice to get home, John starts to tell Marcus more about what had been found the night before. This chocolate isn't as nice this time." "Well, never mind. So yeah, last night, after Jack got the emergency services to let us near the impacted area, for around a mile we slowly walked into the center. The whole area was covered in black slush, made from the burnt trees and water to put them out. Apart from the last 100 meters in the middle, Once again John is interrupted. Oh wait, I need to pop to the toilet. Getting up to go upstairs, Marcus pauses with his hand on the front room doorknob. John starts screaming like a little girl. Whoa. No no. Firecrackers and chilly water. Don't open the door. Marcus, trying not to look scared and unconvincingly, smiles and says, "Yeah, that was close." His smile drops for a second but soon pops back. "I'll go just out the back door." "No, go over behind the shed, else your mom will smell it," John insists. Marcus, sounding rather unwilling, says, "What? It's freezing outside and someone might be behind the shed." Rahaha. "Who's going to be behind the shed?" John laughs out, pushing Marcus outside as he was about to pee from the doorway. With Marcus looking quite unhappy, John throws the blanket at him. It lands right on top of his head, covering his moody face. "Ha ha, that looks better," John says, looking rather pleased with himself, then shutting the door. With John blind with laughter, Marcus pulls the blanket off from his head, grabs a big lump of snow and blasts it towards his dad, and it splats on the window. John jumps quite a bit, looking quite shocked, but soon starts laughing even more. "Here, you'll need these," he goes on to say, lobbing Marcus's wellies out of the window. With Marcus twisting his hips and ducking his head, just about dodging the rubbery onslaught. John once again has a little chuckle at Marcus, as he tips the snow from his wellies, before putting them on and rushing behind the shed. "Oh my god, it's freezing," he thinks to himself, as he's doing his business, struggling not to get any on his mom's old blanket. Just about finishing, staring at a knot in the shed thinking it looks cool, feels a cold tap on his left shoulder. Letting out a frightened yelp, he spins around, slipping, lost, falling into his steaming little puddle he had made. He shivers, more from the tap on his shoulder than the cold air, although the cold seemed to be taking over his body. Staring through the gap between the trees, Marcus feels really uneasy. Wanting to turn around and run away but not being able to from fear of something jumping out and grabbing him. Suddenly Marcus's eyes get fixed to one spot deep between the trees. A cloud of darkness that seemed strangely familiar, like he'd seen it in a dream, or a better word, a nightmare, appears. With his heart banging against his chest, the darkness starts to swirl around with glimpses of purple swishing in and out of sight. With Marcus breathing heavier and heavier and trying so hard to look away, the darkness stops moving after forming a perfect black sphere of fear. A tear falls from his right eye. His right eye was always the first to shed a tear. Maybe it was always more scared than the left, maybe Marcus just had a wonky left eye, or maybe it was just the normal thing to happen. A strip of the darkness starts to extrude from the center of the sphere. As it gets closer to Marcus, a hand starts to form. Tears of fear start to stream from both eyes now, making quite the lake around his feet. The hand of darkness slowly and softly strokes his neck. Feeling like he's getting a ton of sharp, nasty pieces of ice forced down his throat, Marcus is in a lot of pain. After being petrified for what seemed like several forevers, Marcus hears a bird tweet nearby, as if a charm was broken, freeing him. He finally gets use of his eyes back. Just looking away from the sphere for a second makes him feel a lot warmer. With warmth comes enough freedom from fear for Marcus to think to himself. Remembering that his dad's not too far away in the kitchen, doesn't waste any more time being a victim of this evil he faces. Bolting from behind the shed, running so fast towards the house, that his feet don't leave any footprints in the snow. His legs were just that fast that day. Crashing through, then slamming shut the kitchen door, rushing to draw the curtains, and then just standing there, Marcus just staring as if he can still see through the window, out of breath. "Ha ha ha. More out there, is there?" John asks, still finding everything funny. Marcus takes his time to say anything, but after a little while finally does so, still panting. "Any more what?" John answers as if it was obvious. "Spiders. That's what was in the front room, making them camp out in the kitchen, if you hadn't guessed yet." Just wanting to forget about his frosty fright, Marcus drones out. "Yeah. laughing even more than he has done all day, maybe to hide that he was getting a little scared himself. John says, "Well, now they got us surrounded, haha. It'll be alright once your mom's home. Come back over by the oven and let's finish the drinks." Just about to finally finish telling Marcus what had happened the night before, John notices him shivering and realizes that he hasn't got his blanket anymore. "Hey, where's your mom's old blanket?" "I don't know. Did I have it?" he says soullessly, gazing at the red-hot element in the open oven. John, looking concerned for Marcus, answers, "Yeah, you did, but don't worry, I'll go grab it. Your mom wouldn't be too pleased if we left it to ruin." Before shutting the door behind him, John in a scary whisper trying to cheer Marcus up. "If I'm not back in 5 minutes, lock the door." Marcus, being worried for his dad, listens out and can hear his dad speaking to himself, sounding rather silly, as he walks over to the shed. "I'm not scared of no spiders, ha, kung fu spider splat." Marcus doesn't need to see his dad to know that he's jumping up and spinning around as he goes on. Quite a while passes, Marcus pining for his dad, hasn't moved an inch. A tear wells up from his right eye, just sitting there in front of the oven, looking over his shoulder at the back door. Just waiting for it to open, he hears his dad scream. Without even taking a breath, he darts out. Being too worried for his dad to be scared, he looks around and sees the shovel. Being just as big as him and maybe just as heavy, Marcus isn't sure if he could deal a whole lot of damage with it, but grabs it anyway. 100% focused, with no tears, Marcus heads over to the shed, saying quietly, "Dad. Dad." Having the shovel and his arms cocked back ready to strike, he starts to peek and creep little by little around the shed. "Rah-ah! Roar, cough, ha-ha." John bellows as loud as he can, jumping from behind the shed, which he'll immediately regret. Making Marcus jump out of his skin and then swinging the shovel slap bang right on the end of his nose. A moment of silence passes, then Marcus carefully pulls the shovel away. John, just staring cross-eyed at his nose, says, "Didn't the cabbage come from France?" A jet of blood spurts from his nose for a second. He gives Marcus a nervous and worried look. As he does another short jet of blood, he goes cross-eyed again, looking at his nose again, and then passes out, falling flat on his back. His legs pop up into the air as he hits the ground. They soon fall back down apart. With poor old John out cold on the floor, looking like he's about to make a snow angel. Marcus looks a little wide-eyed, unsure of what to do. He looks over to his house, wonders when his mum will be back, looks at his dad, wonders if he should wait, but decides not to, bends down and grabs his dad's legs by the feet and starts to drag.